All right, U.S. Underwater Navy cutting and welding. Chapter 1 Introduction. The scope of this manual is intended to provide information you with the conventional technique for the cutting and welding of materials underwater. It is written by the U.S. Navy diver will specialize for the ship style with the harbor's clearance for the operation. It's not procedural guidance for certifiable welding used in pre-planned underwater shipping husbandry applications. The driver who performed the underwater cutting and welding must grab with great skill and the stamina to do so for the same work topside to succeed. The speed of the operation depending on the condition under which the diver must work with possible with the underwater environmental and purpose imposed with numerous limitations restricted for the operator of the equipment. The diver is often restricted to work for only a short time on the bottom, particularly with a deeper depth. The use of the correct technique for the equipment becomes extremely important in the terms of work accomplished by hour. The diving apparel, the great depth of the light, adverse currents, the low temperature, lack of the visibility, unstable footing are all factors which make underwater cutting and welding difficult. Whenever practical cutting techniques is preferred over the welding during the shipping and salvage operation, for example, the wrecking and plate for the salvage technique, a chain reeved with a two-hole for the cut in the hole with a around with a transverse frame that is preferred with attachment method of the padded welded pad eye. Personal trained qualified underwater cutting and welding may be assigned to you for the procedure for the techniques described in air and additional with the procedure for the manual will be carried out with the performance of USA Navy Navy diving manual and standards Navy safety practices. Appendix D covers in safety in great detail. 1-2 Underwater Cutting Overview. The two underwater cutting processes currently approved by the Navy use for the oxy arc cutting with the exothermic electrodes, steel tubular electrodes, and carry cable, and shield metal arc welding. Of these, oxy arc is preferably because it is easy to use. The two type of electrodes are also called the rods used for oxy arc cutting and exothermic and steel tubular electrode. Of these exothermic is preferred because it is burned independently with after the arc is struck with the oxygen is flowing. They include the motion manual with the sealer enterprise with the exothermic cutting tool carrier cable, which operates the same principle as exothermic electrodes. The second method of underwater cutting, the shield metal arc process for the metal is cut by the intensity of the arc without the use of oxygen. The method is preferred with the oxy arc cutting with the cutting material 1/4 inch of the less thickness when cutting the non-ferrous or corrosion-resistant material of any thickness. Each one underwater cutting method is covered in detail in Chapter 2. 1-3 Underwater Welding Overview. The installation of a large patch weld with attachment and suitable pad eye of the present with a more of a complicated problem with the diver that does for the underwater cutting. The considerable practice is necessary to achieve the consistently good standard for the underwater welding of the salvage work. As a result of the divers underwater with the depth welding techniques must conform with the acceptable standard also of the Ocean Act with a large heat sink with the and draws off the heat over the electrode. This may cover the blowholes of the possible loss of the string between the patch and the hole of the screw that because of the cast cannot escape from the molten metal. The metal does due to suddenly cooling of the surrounding water. Despite the above of the shortening of the fall of the underwater welding, good strength of the acceptability of the salvage work are possible unless otherwise specified in the term. The underwater welding is due to the manual refers to the wet welding technique with no mechanical barriers separates for the welding arc from the surrounding water. The two types of the welding covered in this manual are wet welding and dry welding and splash zones. Shield metal arc welding is most widely used for the process of the wet welding. The specific welding procedure for the underwater maintenance for the ship for the underwater ship, the husbandry manual, and the Navy ship technical manual, chapter 074. The wet welding is accomplished with both the diver and work completely submerged. The advantage and the disadvantage will be discussed in chapter 3. Dry welding in the splash zone is generally conducted by the dry box coffee dammer over the atmospheric pressure for the essentially with the conventional welding discussed in chapter 3 that provide the salver with the method to exclude the water from the welded area. Before procedures with any of the cutting of the welding procedures described in this manual, all the personnel involved must thoroughly review and comprehend the applicable safety precautions, the warnings, cautions, information which based on the knowledge of the experience gained through many years of the Navy of the commercial operation of the President with the Appendix D and the safety summary. The strict adherence to the safety regulations required before starting with a new job. Thoroughly inspect the situation must be made to determine the hazard for the personnel with equipment of the ship and then they may exist. Appropriate action must be taken to eliminate and minimize the noted hazards. Chapter 2 Underwater Welding, Underwater Cutting.